Turning now to some big news south of the border. Former White House advisor Steve Bannon has just pleaded not guilty after being arrested earlier today on wire fraud and money laundering challenges. He's also been granted bail. Bannon is widely considered to be a key architect behind the campaign that swept Donald Trump into the White House. Bannon and 3 others are accused of defrauding donors who had given money to an online fundraising campaign to build a border wall with Mexico. The CBC's Stephen D'Souza is on that story live for us from New York. Hey, Stephen, great to see you. Help me. I just explained a bit of it, but help us really break it down. What exactly is at play here?
Well, it's interesting. I'll first just get into Bannon's court appearance today. He appeared via video wearing a white mask and a button-down shirt and was released on $5 million bail with some rules: no international travel, no travel on private jets or yachts. That's because he was arrested this morning in Connecticut on board the yacht of a Chinese billionaire who's actually wanted in China for charges. That's a whole other story. But this, the charges that he's facing here, as you say, relates to a fundraising effort that began back in December 2018 when an Air Force veteran started this fundraising campaign where the idea was Trump supporters would donate their own money, which would then go to the federal government to help build the border wall with Mexico. And within the first week, they actually raised $17 million. But GoFundMe and some other websites looked at that and said, you know, they're a little wary about where this money is actually going to end up. And so enter Steve Bannon, who created this nonprofit company, and then from there, the government alleges that the money that was supposed to go 100% to the government or 100% to build the wall, none of it was supposed to go to the people involved in this fundraising effort, ended up actually going to those individuals, including Steve Bannon, who the prosecutors allege took about $1 million through this nonprofit, paid some to the other people running this organization, gave some to himself to pay off some of his own expenses, and that when they found out the government was actually investigating them, they actually tried to hide it, and that the government has text messages from some of these individuals talking about hiding these payments. And so Steve Bannon, as you mentioned, did plead not guilty to one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and one count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. Each of those charges bring a jail sentence of about 20 years maximum. And, you know, it's interesting given that the post office is in the news all these days. It was postal inspectors, Vashi, that actually arrested Bannon this morning.
So I know the president was asked about it, Stephen. What exactly did he know about this? What did he say?
Well, it's interesting, you know, you mentioned that Bannon has been given credit as the architect of Trump's victory, of his immigration plans, and he was in the White House for about a year, but him and Trump had a falling out because Trump was unhappy with Bannon's conversations with the media, the fact he was so outspoken, even calling him Sloppy Steve on Twitter once. And so when Trump was asked about him today, he sought to distance himself from Bannon. Take a listen to what Trump had to say.
I think it's a very sad thing for Mr. Bannon. I think it's surprising, but this was something, as you know, just by reading social media and by reading whatever it is and by speaking to Mike and all of them, I didn't like that project. I thought that was a project that was being done for showboating reasons. I don't know that he was in charge. I didn't know any of the other people either, but it's sad. It's very sad.
Interestingly, as much as Trump tried to distance himself from Steve Bannon today, the organization that was trying to build this wall with this fundraising campaign back in January of last year actually promoted that the president had given the project his blessing. And later in the year, though, Trump did criticize it for being a bit too cavalier. But there are some questions, of course, for a president who, you know, campaigned on draining the swamp. Now, yet another one of his associates, of course, his another former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, is in jail. Then you have people like Roger Stone and Michael Flynn, Michael Cohen. So a number of the president's inner circle having already faced charges or currently facing charges. And, you know, just to give you a sense of, you know, what they were telling the donors who are Trump supporters themselves. Some donors, the government alleges, got in touch with the organizers of this fundraising campaign, saying that they didn't have a lot of money, but they believed in building the wall. And another individual, not Steve Bannon himself, told them that all of this money would be spent properly. And so it just gives you a sense of what the government alleges here and what trouble Steve Bannon is facing.
Lots to stay on top of. Thanks for the update, Stephen. Really appreciate it. The CBC's Stephen D'Souza from New York. Bannon is widely considered to be a key architect behind the campaign that swept Donald Trump into the White House. He and 3 others are accused of defrauding donors who gave money to an online fundraising campaign to build a border wall with Mexico. We're going to dig into that news and the national convention of the Democrats' national convention, I should say, with David Frum. He served as a speechwriter to former U.S. President George W. Bush. He's now, of course, a staff writer at The Atlantic, and he's in Wellington, Ontario. Hi, David. You're in Canada.
I am indeed.
Great to see you. Nice to talk to you. It's been a while. I appreciate you making the time for us this evening. Let me start with the Bannon news.
Pleasure.
I want to start with the Bannon news, of course, and get your take on that. I'll preview a little bit of what the president said, but first, just your initial reaction to this arrest.
Well, I would say one felon in the president's inner circle is disturbing, and two is more than disturbing, and three begins to look like a habit. And I think we're now at half a dozen. I think it's been well said that ethical people tend not to be surrounded by criminals. If you are surrounded by criminals, it is a reflection on the surroundee, and that has been a problem for Donald Trump from the beginning.
So the president was asked about it, and at first he said he hasn't been dealing with Bannon for, quote, very long period of time, that he knew nothing about this, but then basically contradicted himself, saying he disliked the program and he thought it was being done for showboating reasons. Does this stuff stick to the president?
Everything sticks, but there's a lot of everything. Look, this particular program was endorsed by the president's son, who did a video ad on its behalf. Donald Trump will not be able to separate himself from it. And a lot of the money in this particular scam was upfronted by someone to whom Donald Trump directed a sweetheart wall-building contract. So the connections are deep and thick, and they will get deeper and thicker. But again, this is not a first time that Donald Trump has another former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, in prison. Roger Stone, the president, commuted the sentence, but another criminal, the president's first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, lied to authorities, investigators about his connections with the Russian embassy, and on and on and on it goes. So does any individual piece of this matter? No, but the general perception of Donald Trump as an unethical president, I think that really has adhered.
Okay, I want to get at that, because I think what I meant by does it stick was the people who believe that he is unethical, right, who have drawn that conclusion based on all the evidence you just laid out even prior to today, have drawn that conclusion already. And I'm wondering if there are still others that you think can be affected by that.
Look, the United States is going through a period of calamity, health calamity, economic calamity, and it has a president who's not morally, not intellectually, not ethically up to the job. I think people ask this question about what will affect the Trump base. And the way to keep that in mind is, look, in the year 1932, the nadir of the Great Depression, when Americans were literally going hungry, Herbert Hoover still got 38% of the vote. That's pretty amazing under the circumstances. He still lost because in a two-party system, 38% of the vote is not enough. I often think about the American people's relationship with Donald Trump like that of an abused wife who's decided to divorce her husband as soon as the last child goes off to school. And every day the husband commits some new atrocity, and the friends ask the wife, why don't you do something? But she's got a date in her head where she can do something. The last kid goes off to school, and then she files the divorce papers. And that's where I think America is with Donald Trump.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.